You're listening to the Sea of Dragons podcast by XFL Fan Zone. Welcome to the Sea of Dragons podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Main. In episode 2, The 8 Realms, we will be diving right in as we are joined by 4 excellent guests. Our XFL player profile features Indoor Football League defensive back Malik Duncan of the Quad City Steamwheelers, and we believe he's a fantastic prospect for the XFL in the near future. Also joining us on the show is the XFL Chick and XFL Down Under. They both will partake in our first ever segment of the 8 Realms. But first, it's time to enter the Dragon's Keep. Okay, and welcome to the Dragon's Keep. In this episode, our guest is David Taylor. He's a freelance writer that has covered the Philadelphia Eagles for PrimetimeSportsTalk.com and the Philadelphia Soul for AFL Fan Zone, and now the Seattle Dragons for XFL Fan Zone. How are you doing today, David?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing well. Well, since we're talking XFL rules on this episode, I thought we'd start right there with the rules. Which one of these new rules that was unveiled, which one's your favorite?
So I think my favorite rule is going to be the conversion, whether the team can go for 1, 2, or 3 points afterwards. I think that's going to set the tone early on in all of the games. A team scores a touchdown and goes for 3 and gets it. Suddenly they're up 9-0, which means the other team's going to have to go down, score, make it 9-9. So you're going to be chasing that conversion the whole game from the first score, whatever decision is made, on that very first score of the game. I think it's going to be very exciting. I even think it's going to be exciting from a prediction standpoint. I think we're going to see a lot of wild scores. So picking who's going to win by how much, I think is going to be, just out the window. Early on in the season there, even for betting, the over-unders and things like that, I think it's going to be just a wild season in regard to that. So I love the conversion rule because of all the options it gives you to add additional points and different ways that you can score.
Are there any other rules that you're concerned about?
Well, for me, I like all the rules. I think the XFL did a great job in innovating, football, making it more exciting. I do think the one rule that people who are already sort of out on the XFL don't really want it to succeed are going to point to the double forward pass as something that is not, quote unquote, real football. And so I think from there, it's going to be something that, people are going to say, okay, that's why I don't like the XFL. That's why I won't watch it, because of that rule. And so I think it's going to be something that people will kind of, shy away from to start with. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I think it's going to be, a trick play here and there. I don't think it's going to rule the league or anything like that. I just think it's a neat innovation that now they have an option to do one more additional thing offensively, which is, going to lead to more excitement in the league.
Let's talk a little Seattle Dragons here. What players or coaches or storylines do you find compelling here in the preseason as we get close to kickoff?
Right. So I think the thing I'm most excited about for the Seattle Dragons is on the offensive side of the football. You've got the offensive coordinator, Mike Riley, coming in from, the Alliance of American Football. And I was, if you tracked it on draft day and just looking at, the free agent signings and things like that, there's a lot of commanders on that roster offensively. Mm-hmm. So that is something I think is going to be very interesting to see, because these guys are going to be, assuming that some of the play calls are very similar, they should be, especially the running game. And so I think that's going to be very interesting to watch and see, are the Dragons going to be ahead of the game? Are they going to be ahead of the curve? And, in just a short 10-game season, are they going to jump out, to 3-1, 4-0? Then all of a sudden the pressure is on the rest of the West to catch up. And I think that might be true. So I'm very excited about the chemistry that we might see on offense, especially early on from the Dragons.
Awesome. Now, do you see Kenneth Farrow and Trey Williams as kind of the 1-2 punch? How do you kind of review or preview this backfield?
I think it is going to be a 1-2 punch, especially because they know the offensive coordinator, and so they should know, whatever verbiage or terminology that he has. I think they're gonna get right in on it and then go. I think they're going to be a nice complement to each other. They worked very well for the Commanders back in the day. So I looked at that to be, a nice 1-2 punch with a little bit of Jaquan Gardner sprinkled in, here and there. To give them, just an alternative. That three-headed monster at running back is something that has worked fairly well in recently, especially in the NFL. There have been a few teams that have gone to that multiple running back look that has been very effective for them. So I think this is going to definitely help the Dragons to get out and be more successful, especially early on.
Now, how about the quarterbacks? We know that Brandon Silvers was the allocated quarterback. How do you see B.J. Daniels kind of pushing him for competition for that role and or the double forward pass? And, how do you see these quarterbacks working out?
Right, yeah. So I think looking at Daniels, he was a run-pass guy, right? He had a couple thousand yards rushing in college, threw for a lot of yards too. So I think that's going to be the 1-2 punch at quarterback we're going to be able to see from Seattle is, you're going to have a more traditional pocket passer with Silvers, which gives the defense one kind of a look, out there. And then Daniels is going to come in maybe on the double forward pass where you're going to throw it out to him and he's going to be able to take off running down the field like a running back or wide receiver even, or he's just going to chuck it to the, across the field to someone streaking, for a long touchdown pass. So I think in that respect, and that's the thing that's kind of exciting about the XFL, because all these guys, even though they had allocated starters for quarterbacks and things like that, all these guys are fighting for jobs. So I think they're going to get on the field a lot more than a traditional NFL team who's got the 1-2-3 where the backup never sees the field unless it's preseason or the starter is injured. I think we're going to see a lot of different wrinkles with quarterbacks lined up in different situations, which is going to be fun because you're going to see these guys a lot more often. So from a competition standpoint, I think he's going to push him because he's going to push. He being B.J. Daniels is going to push Silvers because he can run and pass, right? And so you've got lots of different things going on here with the XFL with the new rules and stuff. And so that will be what would win B.J. Daniels the job, I think, is the dual threat. And then, Silvers would just be standing back there being accurate. Now, Silvers, he had a quarterback, controversy or whatever competition with Memphis when he was in the Alliance, and so he's used to a quarterback controversy and quarterback competition, and so that might be what helps boost him along as well, because he's already had to fight this battle, just this time last year basically. He was already doing this, so that'll be interesting to watch for sure.
So you'll be covering the Seattle Dragons for XFL Fan Zone. As a writer, what kind of storylines or content are you expecting to write about for the Seattle Dragons?
Well, I'm looking at doing maybe some player profiles, especially like a player of the week kind of thing. If you have a certain Dragon who stands out among the rest, really diving into what got him there to do the XFL and some of his backstory a little bit there. I'll also be doing some other things, some preview and prediction stuff. So I'll be looking at that. How you want to watch the game or where you can get the games and what you might want to do as far as betting wise and things like that. I think that's something that interests me a lot. Not just Dragon specific, but in all of it. My biggest aspiration would be probably maybe to get some guys, do some interviews, get some audio clips, or maybe even some video clips. I get to watch the Dragons in week 1 playing the Defenders, and so maybe I'll be able to get some press credentials and get down there and get some interviews and things like that, and just kind of make some good contacts in that first weekend.
Now let's talk about XFL 2020 on a whole now. We'll do some real early preseason predictions. Who do you see winning the East?
Well, on paper, looking at, and especially with some of the transactions they made this week, I got to go with the DC Defenders. They're fast, they're experienced. They got a national champion quarterback. They got a wide receiver who can take the top off the defense. They got running back with some gigantic monster stats coming out of of college and with some NFL experience. So I think the Defenders look like the most complete team in the East, so it would not surprise me at all if they're in the XFL Championship at the end of the season.
Okay. And how about out West?
Well, out west, not to sound biased since I am going to be covering the Dragons, but again, I look to that chemistry, that early offensive chemistry with Mike Riley and his guys. I think the Dragons are going to jump out pretty fast on the west as far as, maybe 3-1, 4-0, something like that. A team like Dallas, who's having some quarterback issues right now, might stumble a little bit out of the gate. So I'm actually kind of excited. That first game I get to go to, in a couple of weeks, the DC Defenders versus the Seattle Dragons, I think that might be a preview of the XFL Championship game.
Wow. So we might have the Seattle Dragons and Defenders in Game 1 and the very end of the season as well.
Yep, a perfect bookend to the XFL season. So hopefully many seasons to come. But yeah, I definitely am expecting Seattle and DC to go very far, finishing the top two in both the East and the West.
Okay. Thank you, David. And the final question here, what would you like to tell all of the football fans out there that are either on the fence or they're just kind of curious about watching XFL football?
Well, I think, the main thing that I would say is to give it a chance. The one thing that's exciting about the XFL and the thing they got right, like they got absolutely right out of the gate, was they got lots of national networks. They have Fox, they have FSN or FS1 or something like that covering the games. Lots of all the national networks. I think ABC's covering the games, ESPN. So they made all those right decisions. So give it a chance. It's going to be on TV Saturday and Sunday at really nice, convenient times, 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock. So not too early in the morning, not too late. I would say just give it a chance, give it a look. And if you're in one of those cities, go out to a game. The tickets are really reasonable. It's a nice family event. $20 a ticket, something like that, and they're all going to be great seats. Some of these stadiums, especially like up in DC, it's a smaller stadium, perfect atmosphere to watch football. So if you're on the fence at all, you owe it to yourself to give the XFL a look, because I think it's going to be something, especially with some of the rules innovations that they've come up with. It's really going to revolutionize football, and I think we're going to see some of that stuff in the NFL and the NCAA in years to come.
That's exciting. All right, David. Well, we will catch up with you at some other point during the season here, and hopefully we'll have you back on.
That sounds great. Love to do it.
Okay, you take care.
All right, thanks.
That's David Taylor. You can follow him on Twitter at FaithFootball52, as well as XFL Fan Zone, which is simply at XFL Fan Zone. They're both well worth a follow and just a few clicks away. This episode's XFL player profile features a young, fantastic defensive back that was a standout talent in college with the St. Francis Red Flash. Malik Duncan earned a shot with the Pittsburgh Steelers in minicamp coming out of college. He was a rookie in the IFL this past season with the Quad City Steamwheelers. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So you played your college ball with St. Francis, the Red Flash. How would you describe your college football experience?
My time at St. Francis, it was amazing. Over the years, each and every year I got better and better, and learned the game more and more as time went on. I said my freshman and sophomore year I was just pretty much playing, but my junior senior year I really broke down film and actually knew what guys was doing and what teams was doing or what they were trying to accomplish each and every drive. So it was an amazing experience. I wish I could redo it, but I can't.
Well, you did pretty well. You didn't give up many touchdowns, did you?
I gave up 3 in my career. I gave up 1 when I was a freshman, my first ever college game, and then my sophomore year, I gave up 2, 1 against Wagner and 1 against Townsend on a double move. That was it.
Nice. Let's see. So you went from St. Francis out of college. How did that lead to an opportunity going to the Pittsburgh Steelers camp?
So I didn't get called draft day, and we had a school banquet a few days later, and I met Mr. Rooney's god brother, and he was like, he couldn't believe that I didn't get picked up. And I said, yeah, me neither. And he just was like, reach out to my brother and see if he can get your opportunity. And Pittsburgh, not a lot of people don't know this story, but yeah, so he actually reached out to Mr. Rooney, sent Mr. Rooney my film, and Mr. Rooney loved my film. He didn't even get my film, so he really didn't know much about me until that time, and he gave me an opportunity.
What are some of the specific things that you learned during Rookie Minicamp with the Steelers?
That you have to be in shape, and you got to know pretty much everything you're doing and everybody around you. I played safety in camp, and that was my first time ever playing safety. So I was, a little bit behind, so I picked up on everything fast. But just to tell everybody else exactly what they was doing too as well, it was tough. But yeah. I knew what I was doing. But, I'll say you gotta dissect the game more and just be willing to learn more. But you also got to be in shape. That's the most important thing. You got to look up to par. You got to be up to par. And you just got to be ready.
Take us back to your youth. Was there a specific moment or a play in your young career that you thought to yourself, I could do this as a pro?
My cousin Jerome Baker, he played for the Miami Dolphins. We played together when we was younger, and it was a time when he didn't play a game. My uncle didn't let him play for one game, so I pretty much had to really do a lot on my own. Normally it was a 1-2 type of punch, but I had 4 touchdowns. It was 11 years old, and I had 4 touchdowns and an interception. I'll never forget it, and that's when it hit me. I normally was dependent on him, and everybody was dependent on him, but it made me open my eyes how good I actually am.
So when you get an opportunity to play in the XFL, what would you say are some of your strongest traits that you'll bring as a player?
Energy and just my willingness to learn. I can't wait, I know that I'm just speaking into existence. The day is going to come. I just don't know when. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to show the world exactly who I am and what I'm about.
Mm-hmm. So what's your favorite play on defense to make as a player?
I love breakups. I don't really get a lot of picks because I struggle with catching the ball over my time, but for sure I'm good at breaking the ball up and force fumbles. Them the type of 2 things that I love doing.
With the 2020 season coming up as a defensive back for Quad City, what aspect of your game are you working on most at this point in the preseason?
Catching the ball, interceptions. That's probably what's going to make me get up out of Quad City, get out the IFL. I had to get a lot of interceptions.
Okay.
I showed that I can break the ball up and cause forced fumbles and make tackles, but I need to get interceptions.
Now that you have a season under your belt in the IFL, what's the 50-yard game like as a defensive back?
Quick. Real quick. It's just hard to explain, but you don't really got enough time to think. You got to go off your natural abilities, and you got to react, and you got to know what's going on. Yeah, with that 50-yard field, you just don't have no time to think. So if you think it's going to be a post corner, you better go with whatever you think.
So there's a little gambling going on in your mind as far as what you're going to commit to.
Yeah, you got to gamble sometimes. Not every time, but yeah. I learned that in this game, in the arena, you got to gamble. Because it's made for the offense. And, you stop it. If you stop a team once or twice, you normally should win the game because it's made for the offense.
Yeah.
So getting stops is a plus, but
yeah.
Other than that.
All right, Malik. Well, we know you had a great 2019 season. We're really looking forward to seeing what you do in the IFL in 2020, and we wish you all the best, and thank you so much for coming on our show, and good luck this year.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, you bet. And that's Malik Duncan. You can watch him go to work in the IFL starting March 7th via the Indoor Football League's YouTube channel, where they broadcast all of their games live and free. You can follow Malik on Twitter at mduncan_7 or on Instagram at dunk_1. That's DUNC_1. Okay, welcome to the new segment on our show, The 8 Realms, where we will be talking all about XFL with a wide variety of guests. Our very first guest, though, into the 8 Realms, is the XFL chick. She's covering XFL 2020, and we're honored to have her on. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Excited to have you on. Well, I want to get right to it. Out of all the new rules, Which one is your favorite?
My favorite definitely has to be, and probably the most popular one, is the overtime rule. I think that's going to be super fun. Hopefully we have 1 or 2 games with the overtime rule because it's going to be kind of like a hockey shootout, kind of like a penalty kicks for, the soccer. And I think it's just going to be so fun for the fans to watch, play versus play from different teams. It's going to be a blast.
Well, we're in alignment there. So out of the rules, what are there 1 or 2 that you're maybe a little concerned about?
So my concern actually has to do with my favorite. I don't think they've decided yet what side of the field, if they're going to have, everyone out on the field during these overtime rules, or are they going to pick one side and then they switch out, the offenses and defenses. And if that's the case, my concern is that going to be fair for, the people that bought tickets on the other side? They're not going to be able to see what's going on really on that one side of the field, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So that'll be interesting to see how they decide which side to do that on. That was really my one concern. Other than that, I love the new rules. I think why not? I love the fast-paced football that they're creating.
Mm-hmm.
I think the 25-play clock is going to be quick, and I think we're going to have conditioned football players out there.
So going beyond the rules now and just talking about the league overall, what are some of the most exciting things about the XFL, whether it's stuff that they've already done and rolled out, or what are you looking forward to in the season?
I'm looking forward to the fact that this league has been planned out well. They announced about 2 years ago that they were coming back, and I would say that McMahon and Oliver Luck were really planning this even, I would say, longer than 2 years, because he hinted at it in an interview with Charlie Ebersol, actually, ironically. But I think that he's really planned this out well. He's financing it himself, McMahon.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's here, to finish the season 3 years out. And it's fun to know that this is something that, they put a lot of thought into. And the media is doing a great job. Marketing's doing awesome. They're putting out a lot more content, than the Alliance. And I think that the fact that they're just really relying on opinions and suggestions from fans, that's excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, the advisory council, what a great idea.
Well, we've covered a little bit of the league now, and let's go through all 8 teams. I'll name a team, and you give me 1 or 2 storylines that you find exciting or interesting. And we'll start out west with the LA Wildcats.
Yeah, with LA, I think all eyes are going to be on Coach Moss. He's a riot. I think he's fun, energetic, but also has that very competitive, serious side to him. And so far with little interviews, he's been funny, throwing out the Wildcat way. And, man, it's a good motto. I feel like whenever I do anything, I'm mentally just thinking, do it the Wildcat way. Seems convincing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Coach Moss and probably Josh Johnson, since, he's the Tier 1 quarterback and 33 years old. He's got a lot of experience. I think a lot of eyes will be on him to see how he performs.
Okay, well then we'll transition up the coast to Seattle. Tell me a little bit about the Dragons.
Coach Riley. I'm starting off with coaches because they're the first faces we saw. And I think Coach Riley, I was a fan of San Antonio Commanders. He was a great coach. And so I think he's going to do a great job with the team, whether it be just, their players having a good sense of camaraderie and having just a good sense of, I guess, team bonding off the field. And I like Brandon Silvers. Kenneth Furrow is great, and Trey Williams are going to be guys to keep my eyes on.
Mm-hmm. From Seattle, let's go to Texas and cover the other 2 teams in the West. How about Dallas Renegades?
So this is interesting because I think early on everyone was talking about, oh man, what a duo, Coach Stoops and Landry Jones. They're going to accomplish incredible things. Well, unfortunately, Landry Jones, he got hurt. And so, yes, he's going to be back. It's a 4 to 6 week recovery. And I do hope he, gets healthy quickly. So I'm wondering how Eric Dungy's going to do. You know, I know that he did well in college, and he's young, and it looks like Coach Stoops is already taking him on, likes what he's bringing to the table, so that will be interesting.
Another quarterback on Stoops' roster is Philip Nelson from the Alliance and San Diego Fleet. Do you think he's going to maybe push for that starting role as well?
I hope so, because I watched him. I was actually at that game in San Diego, and he just dominated the field. I mean,
yes, he did.
I'll never forget. It was touchdown after touchdown, and unfortunately, you know, he hurt I think it was his shoulder, right?
I think so, yeah.
Right, but he's back, and he's definitely capable. He's a mobile quarterback.
And he really did catch fire in San Diego. And about the time he was really getting into a groove, he got that hiccup with the injury. So moving on to Houston, how about the Roughnecks? What do you see in the Roughnecks?
I see Connor Cook, because he's coming out of Michigan State with, you know, he's holding the record most career wins. And so I think he's going to be a great quarterback. Then again, they've got two other quarterbacks, but I think Connor Cook will do a really good job. I see Houston kind of as the underdogs. So, you know, I'm not going to be surprised if they come out and win some games and surprise us on the west side.
So let's transition to the East. Let's start with the New York Guardians.
Yes, there's Coach Gilbride. Seems like a tough cookie, always wearing his sunglasses. You don't really know if he's angry, happy. He's going to be interesting. You know, I'm curious to see how he adjusts to the reimagined football. There's a lot of changes, and he seems a little bit old school. Mm-hmm. But I think he could do good stuff with his kind of strict mindset.
Let's talk about the city that lost its NFL team, the St. Louis Battlehawks. What do you see there in a storyline for the Battlehawks this year?
The Battlehawks, they've got a nice NFL facility. It's indoor. From what I've seen, they're treated nicely. So this could be a team that's either spoiled or they're truly prepared to kick some butt. Nice. I see Jordan Ta'amu as being a very good quarterback. He's young, and he's actually, I think, one of the only QBs without any professional regular season experience. So I could see him coming out strong. I mean, it's going to be cool to see him, especially watching some film. He seems like he's got a good arm and good footwork.
And how about the Tampa Bay Vipers?
The Vipers seem to have a coach who really cares about this league, the well-being of the players. Mark Trestman, I listened to an interview with him, and he really grew on me when I listened to that podcast. So I think he's going to do good things. He's got Aaron Murray. He's kind of got to prove himself. I mean, in the Lions, he threw 7 interceptions, but this could be his redemption time.
And the final team in the East, the DC Defenders. What are you interested in watching them play?
They've got Coach Pep Hamilton. He seems intense, seems knowledgeable, seems to really, I don't know, get in there with the team. And I saw him practicing throwing with the other QBs, and I thought that was really neat. Being a coach myself, I think players really respect that and really admire that when a coach is willing to not only coach them and, you know, yell in their ears, but one that's willing to play with them and show them what they've got. So I like this coach, and you know, they have a solid QB as well. I mean, I was watching some clips from training camp, and he's mobile. He's fast, and he's strong.
He's big.
Yeah.
So now that we've covered all the 8 teams, I'm going to ask you to stick your neck out there a little bit and make a few preseason predictions, so we won't hold you to it too much. But who do you see winning the West?
I see Dallas winning it.
You do?
I do.
Okay.
I don't know if it's based on the mascot. I don't know if it's based on just all the talk that's going around.
It's a little intimidating, isn't it? Right? No, they nailed it. Yeah.
Renegades, raising hell.
That's right. Okay, you can have it. So we got the Renegades in the West. Who do you see winning out East?
This one I've gone back and forth between. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say New York, because I think that they're a team that's kind of under the radar, hasn't done much transactions with trading players. They've really stuck to their guns and kept their players. That their back office did a lot of work on recruiting, and picking. So I think it's going to be a good combo. Matt McGloin has had a lot of experience. I think he'll mesh well with Coach Gilbride's style. So I'm going to go with New York.
Hey, that sounds good. I actually really like New York's roster. I think they've got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. So now for the big choice at the end of the season, who wins it all then between the Renegades and the Guardians?
I'm going to go with the Big Apple.
Okay, New York Guardians, XFL 2020 champions. All right, final question. What message would you like to send to all the football fans out there that are either on the fence or curious about watching XFL in 2020?
I think it's going to be a fun, fast-paced, crisp football game. I've been hearing that a lot, and I want to repeat it because I think it will.
Yeah.
And I think we've got a great league coming up. We've got good players, great personalities, solid coaches. We're in for some entertainment, people, and I say that let's keep this community up. Let's support each other. Let's be positive, optimistic, and let's have fun. Let's go watch this league kick butt.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. I'm super fired up, and you just put a smile on my face, so I'm ready for some football. And just want to thank you for coming on to the show and being a guest with us, and hopefully we'll have you back again this season.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. All right, that's the XFL Chick. You can follow her on Twitter at XFL Chick or on Instagram at XFL Chick. Our next guest in the Eight Realms is speaking to us from the Southern Hemisphere, all the way from Queensland, Australia. Welcome, Reagan, from XFL Down Under. How are you doing today?
Great. The little baby's keeping me awake, which is great. Everything's going perfect. Getting ready for the XFL.
So, how do you think the XFL 2020 will go over with Australian audiences?
I honestly think the XFL, it's going to start off with a very, very small community here in Australia. As even in the NFL, there is only the most dedicated fans get up at 6 a.m. to watch a game. But like everything, it's going to need time, in my opinion, just because most Australians don't know too much about American football outside of movies. But over the last 10 years that I've been into the NFL, there's actually now gridiron leagues all over the country. And we have a lot of players going overseas to actually play for teams in France and Germany and things like that. So I think in the next coming years, if when the XFL hits year 3 or 4, you'll see a lot more, not only NFL fans, but a lot of those NFL fans will continue straight on past February to the XFL. And that's part of the reason I started XFL Down Under, was to help spread the word and get people more invested in it as well.
Now, based on that, though, there was some recent news. Wasn't there an announcement for XFL being broadcast in Australia?
Yeah, so I've actually been chasing this for a very long time. But last week there was 100% confirmation that ESPN Australia will be showing every single game live. Come February 9 at 5 a.m., all the Aussies that are keen on the XFL will be ready at 5 a.m. with our coffees, ready to watch the Dragons take on the Defenders. So
yeah,
it's pretty exciting.
That is exciting. You just got me excited for Australia. That's great.
But going off that is, I also got confirmation as well, because most Aussies, we love a good bet. I also got confirmation as well that one of our betting companies, PointsBet, will also be offering markets as well. So that's going to be really exciting.
The XFL rules just came out recently. What new rule are you most excited about?
Probably the kickoff.
Really?
I like how they've done it. I was skeptical. That was probably going to be my biggest rule, that I was going to go, I don't think that's going to work. Just leave the kickoff how it is, or how it was done in the AAF. I actually love that way. But watching the videos, I think it's going to work perfectly fine, because it's eliminating the big impacts that the NFL wants to get rid of, but it's not taking away the quality of the game.
No.
I'm actually really excited to watch some kickers make some tackles.
Nice.
Because I think that's going to have to happen.
Sure, because that's right. He's back there as the safety valve.
I'm actually really excited to see see how that's going to play out.
Is there a specific rule that you find you're most concerned about?
Yeah, it's definitely going to have to be the point after attempts. I mean, I'm excited to see how it's going to work, so I think it's way too confusing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of teams are going to get burnt on that. Like, I mean, come third quarter, a lot of the fans are going to find that pretty annoying as well. If your team's only, say, 2 touchdowns away from the lead, come 2 minutes in the fourth quarter, it's going to be even worse.
You think it's gonna create some controversies amongst the fans and the experience?
Absolutely.
Yeah, just little drama.
I mean, I'm excited to see how it works. I mean, I'm excited about everything in the league, but that's going to be my most concerning rule.
Let's travel around all 8 teams and touch base on each team real quickly. I'll give you a team, and you tell me the 1 or 2 players, coaches, or storylines you find interesting about each, okay?
Yep.
Let's start in the East. Let's start with the St. Louis Battlehawks.
Probably for the Battlehawks, it's probably going to have to be the defensive end, William Clark.
Okay.
Reason being is, like, I love defense, even though I play fullback. And just going off his stats as well. So, I mean, he's only played a few years in the NFL, but in that time he was able to get 37 tackles and 7 sacks, and he hardly started a game as well.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Given the league is so driven towards scoring points,
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually excited to see those defensive players that are going to go, not today.
Well, let's move down to Tampa Bay and talk about the Vipers.
Yep. So the Vipers. So the one thing I like about the Vipers there is it's going to have to be their receiving core, because with Reese Horn and Nick Truesdale,
Mm-hmm.
those guys know how to get open and how to get open often. And with those guys, I expect a very pass-heavy team, especially with the late addition of Antonio Callaway,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to be huge for the league as well, because he's got a lot of fans in Cleveland who are going to go, okay, what's he doing in the XFL? And that's going to produce more for the XFL.
Yeah. So from Tampa, let's check in on the DC Defenders. What do you see in DC?
I see probably the most complete team in the XFL, to be honest. I'm actually excited for a relevant football team in Washington, just simply because the Defenders, they've got absolute studs all over the place. On offense, I'm really excited for that Cardale Jones and Rashad Ross going all out on the field, especially in the end zone. I mean, I expect those 2 guys to have a lot of their stats lining up with each other. That's going to be the team that everyone's going to be keeping an eye on.
Let's go to New York and tell me about what pops out to you with the Guardians.
I mean, I want to say their uniforms, because their uniforms are pretty sick.
Yeah, they certainly pop out. Yeah, I like those road grays are phenomenal in my opinion.
I like how they've got the helmet design.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to say it's going to be the head coach in Kevin Gilbridge.
Mm-hmm.
Reason being is I'm a sucker for stats, and I'm a sucker for great stats as well. And he won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants when he was offensive coordinator.
With that said, who's your preseason pick to win the Eastern XFL?
In my opinion, I'm happy for someone to prove me wrong, but the Defenders are the most complete team. So I think every team's going to have a shot at taking out the East, but I think those guys right now are in front.
Okay. All right. Well, we got it on tape, so we'll hold you to it late in the season.
I'm happy for someone to prove me wrong.
Yep. There you go. Well, it'll be fun to watch how it goes. So, let's travel out to the West now and start with the Houston Roughnecks.
It's very easy to overlook their roster and say there's nothing there, but a lot of the time, like you've got to sort of focus on these teams and actually go through the players, because a lot of these players
Mm-hmm.
have come out of college and nobody knows who they are just because
Mm-hmm.
they haven't got a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I think plus, as you and I have spoken about, having June Jones at head coach,
Yeah.
I expect a very pass-heavy game from these guys, and I expect their stats to pretty much mirror that as well. So
Yeah, I actually expect the Roughnecks to be a very exciting team to watch. And I think they do have a lot of hidden talent, but I definitely think they're a team to keep an eye on for sure. How about staying in Texas, and what do you see in the Dallas Renegades?
once again, the uniforms, that powder blue.
Nice.
I love it. Apart from that, I've got to go with another coach in Bob Stoops. I mean, at the end of the day, this is professional football, and history matters. So with Bob Stoops, if you've got a 6-time Big 12 Coach of the Year, it will be exciting considering the XFL is all about scoring points, and Bob Stoops, as I said before, does have that history as a defensive coach, and I think he's going to put a lot of teams back on the bench on offense. So I think that's going to be awesome to see.
Let's travel to the West Coast now, and we'll start with the Seattle Dragons.
I think it's good because if I'm not mistaken, the Dragons have a bit of a soft spot in your heart.
A little bit.
A little bit. But I can tell you right now, probably won't be soft on their opponents, simply because having their running game involve Kenneth Farrow and Jaquan Gardner in the backfield. I think both of these guys, in my opinion, they are power backs, no matter what anyone says on their highlight film. If you take a closer look, they're more than happy to run through somebody, but on the flip side, they're happy to run around somebody, and they're even more excited to catch the ball out in the open. So, I mean, you hear a lot about dual threat quarterbacks, but I think these guys here are triple threat running backs. I expect them to get the ball on 1st and 10 and 3rd and 8, and I don't think they'll have a problem making it happen.
So we'll go to the final team in the West. Let's move down to the Los Angeles Wildcats.
For me, the biggest name on the Wildcats it's going to be a big surprise for a lot of people. Actually, their kicker, in Nick Novak. Reason being, he spent the last 15 years playing on a professional level. Now, yes, he may just be a kicker, but he's had the best seat in the house in that time. So he's picked up a thing or two, and I'm definitely sure he's passed that on to his teammates because at the end of the day, it's football, it's competitive, and everybody wants an edge to win. So yeah, I'm actually really excited to see that.
Let's go to a prediction in the West. Who do you see win in the West?
You're probably going to love me for this one, but I'm going to have to say the Dragons. Only if, and it'll only be if they do rely heavily on the run game. Modern football is a passing game. But I mean, if your running backs are getting you first down, before you know it, you're in the end zone or you're in the red zone looking to score that touchdown. Yeah,
okay. So we've got the DC Defenders in the East, and you got the Dragons in the West. Who do you see winning it all?
I'm going to have to go, again, the Defenders, just because I like what I see on paper. If you look all over the field, their quarterback, receivers, both their lines and their defense, I think at the end of the season, it's going to be the DC Defenders, defending you too. All
right. DC Defenders taking home the championship. Now, can you tell the listeners how they can follow XFL Down Under?
Yeah, so right now I'm just on Twitter, which is @XFL Down Under, and I'm the only one on there, so it should be easy to find.
Yeah, and XFL is just about ready to kick off, and that I'm sure will have a lot of Australian fans coming out of the woodwork. So as we go into the 2020 season, I want to wish you all the best, and I also want to wish Australia the best in recovering from the bushfires.
Thanks so much, mate. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. You take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
You too, mate. Take it easy.
Okay, that's our brother from Down Under. Please check him out on Twitter for a fresh Australian take on XFL 2020. That's @XFL Down Under. Just want to take a few seconds to thank all 4 of our guests for joining us on episode 2, The 8 Realms. And thanks to all of our listeners. Feel free to leave positive or constructive feedback in the comments on whatever platform or outlets you're listening through. We'll be back very soon with episode 3, and we're only days away from XFL Kickoff 2020. So please, fasten your seatbelts. Thank you for listening to Sea of Dragons, XFL Fan Zone 2020.